And we're live in studio. FTMIG. On my entire network. Here we are.
FTMIG.
Brandon. Greg.
Hey.
And Sir Carl.
Hello, hello.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really quickly go through what's going to be on the show. We'll have the three of us talking about random things. That's definitely on the show. We've got the CFO from MTec Acquisitions Corp. She'll be talking about their company where they really focus on ancillary products in the United States, opposed to actual, flour and things like that. Ancillary products for cannabis, that is. We've got Chris Arthur coming on. He's going to be someone we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the next little while. We're doing the segment Ask a Fund Manager. We asked you what questions you had for Chris, that like what is CDAR, what's price earnings ratio, things like that. He went through those answers there, so we'll have him on as well. And we have Jonny Mack coming on, and he's breaking down what stocks: Aurora, Wayland, and 1933 Industries.
Yep.
Nailed it.
First time.
Hey, we got hats.
We do have hats. Are we able to zoom in on this? They're just random hats. Oh, don't touch them. They're perfect space. Okay, don't touch them. Merchandise coming soon. Coming soon. People have been asking for a while.
Just for friends and stuff.
But gents, what's on your mind?
Well, I was actually just cruising the Facebook group land, and I saw this someone posted, "Do not sell Afria shares. GGB will buy them up." Ooh. And I thought, wow, he's giving financial advice.
Yeah. Great stories.
Not allowed to do that, Mr. Steve.
That's an interesting, we might as well start off with that topic then, because yesterday was the formal offer, GGB for Afria. Yeah, it's a lot of mixed emotions with that. It's all, you've got people coming from all different spectrums, right? Of saying, oh, they think Afria is worth more, why is GGB doing this? And there's just a lot of questions going back and forth. What do you guys think?
I think my favorite thing right now, which I find funny, is I see a lot of people posting that, Afria is worth way more just on their Canadian assets alone than what they're valued at right now. So I got to tell you, then there must be a lot of stupid investors out there, because why is the stock not trading at those multiples? Why is it not trading higher? There's a reason for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the latest stuff that's been going on with them, obviously, but I mean, because of the bad stuff that I guess Vic was going through and everything like that, it brought them all the way down to where they are, but it doesn't mean that what they have with like LHS and all that kind of stuff and Latam, it doesn't mean that they're not worth that, but they're being kept down right now because of all the crap that's been going on, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where there's a lot of intricate things we don't really understand just yet. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ties, and I think, unfortunately, the whole aspect between Vic and those cheap shares from LHS, I think that's where a lot of people are wondering, okay, is this another scheme to get rich or whatever it be? And I think that's what people are pulling in. But you were bringing up a really good point beforehand. The family behind this, the Schottensteins, these are not your pump and dumpers. These guys look for penny stocks. This is, I think it was Forbes 100 richest family in the United States. These people go in and they build empires. Yeah. Hence why they're going to have multiple businesses in this space.
They have a track record of starting businesses and building them into multi-billion-dollar valuations, right? I mean, so right, like they've got a great track record. Let's pull up that article. Do you have it available?
I do. NDI, bam, go on the screen.
So I mean, yeah, I don't think that this family wants to, capitalize on the cannabis space and try to create some sort of penny stock pump scenario, right? I think they're the real deal. So I mean, I think that's why I got involved in the company. That's why I bought shares, and yeah.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting, but yeah, you're right. You don't get a family like that involved, and they're not just in there trying to flip a couple pennies. They want to build something, but there's a lot of questions still to be answered. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time before, May 9th? May 9th. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting time seeing how this transpires, how the two trade, because obviously when Afria and GGB, when their share prices are changing, it's a fixed share ratio. So that's going, especially if Afria starts going down or GGB starts going, it's a strange situation. I still think it's really interesting. I met Peter. He was here for an interview, and I really got a good sense that he knows what he's doing. He's been in this situation before, not cannabis, but the retail instead. But you need to make your own decision, by all means. I just don't think that this is the same type of scams that we're seeing elsewhere. I think this is just a family obviously coming in and they're going to have multiple companies here, but that's just my personal opinion. Who knows if I'm right or if I'm wrong? Time will tell.
We'll see in a little bit, you know?
Yep. What else is on the, we're going to the
Esports.
Esports. So,
Pull that up.
we said this, I don't know if I've got that
NDI.
up. I know, I don't have it ready
NDI.
for my NDI. Esports is the CanTech. He's going, no. Where's your NDI?
We went through this before.
Doesn't have it.
So,
You know
hey, what do
why?
you wanna-
Because he's got a Mac, folks. He's got a Mac. That's why. Just
Actually-
get a computer, a real one. I'm joking. All you Mac people out there, you're good people too. But the CanTech conference this Tuesday, because we've had a lot of people telling us that there's a huge wave coming and it's esports, and they're going to start. Is it overactive? Overactive, and you brought this to me, and we were talking about it, and how overactive is the one that everyone's been waiting for, and there's going to be a lot of IPOs coming up. I personally know very little about it right now. That's what I'm excited about. If we can find out something before people start really piling into it, that's what you want to do.
Probably gives you a good chance to make money. But I'm not suggesting that this is a good sector to make money. I just think I'm very, very, very interested in it.
Yeah.
And if you can pull it up,
I have no idea where it is.
the group, our Facebook group, Brandon.
Oh, that one. Look at this guy.
We started a Facebook group for esports. It's small right now, but we're looking to network with some with people. And yeah, we want to educate ourselves on this space, learn. We don't know a lot about it, but could be a big opportunity.
I'm putting up overactive, and Facebook is telling me to look at overactive bladder, overactive thyroid,
That's just what you've looked up.
Probably the
recently.
investors group. That's the one we're looking for. Oh, we like to have fun here, guys. That's what Greg says all the time. So if you're interested in looking into esports, Overactive Media Investors Group, we're going to start looking into it, start doing some DD in there.
Esports group, can you pull it up?
Esports. This
Thanks.
is asking so much of this computer. If it was a Mac, it wouldn't have been able to do it anyway, though. But
Probably switch computers.
It's 2-1 here. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure James.
I have half our people watching hate me now.
Yeah, probably.
Please comment on that.
Mr. wanted to be organized.
And I mean, he's just pulling things out of a hat here, folks. But if you want to go back to that NDI, esports, right there. We're going to be learning about it alongside you. We don't pretend like we know anything about it yet, but we're reading, we're learning, and that conference is going to be really interesting. Going there with Chris Arthur, actually, who's very, very good at digging into things in different sectors. So I'm excited for that.
Good panel of speakers too. You sent me that the panel, and even Bruce Linton, I think, is there.
He's there on Wednesday.
Jim,
Yeah.
is it Basili?
Basili, yeah.
Basili? So, I mean, smart
Owner
people
of
are
Boston
gonna be there.
Pizza and many other things.
What?
Jim Basile, he's the
Isn't
owner.
he the
Blackberry dude.
Blackberry?
He's the owner of BlackBerry and many other things. Who's the guy from Shark Tank? And he owns Boston Pizza.
I know who you're talking about, but
It's a Jim.
I don't know his name.
I think it's a Jim.
It's not Balsillie though.
It's not.
No.
Well, what
Remember the
can
guy that wanted to
you
bring a second franchise to Toronto for the Leafs?
Yeah.
And they said no.
I'm surprised by that, actually. I am surprised. 30 mil? Good afternoon to you, too. That's very nice, very nice. Yeah, I'm surprised it's not. But, hey, you know what? We're talking about esports. Look at sports. Look at how valuable some of those places are, especially Maple Leafs. My goodness.
Oh my god.
You can invest in Maple Leafs back in the day?
Fucking Brandon brought his A game today.
Did I?
Yeah.
A minus, A plus, B?
It's okay. They can't always
It's
be.
a hard B plus.
Hard B plus. Okay then. Well, on that note, we've got an interview coming up right now. It's in the States. There aren't that many. I think Cushco Bottle is the only one I'm really thinking of that deals specifically with ancillary products where it's not touching the actual plant. That's what MTec Acquisition Corp is all about. They've got some recent news there. We were able to sit down with their CFO earlier today, and this is what she had to say. And we're joined here today by Tahira Ramatullah, CFO of MTec Acquisitions Corp. How are you doing today, and thank you for coming on the show.
Great, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. When we were looking into your company and seeing that a lot of what you're doing, I think exclusively, is on the ancillary side of the cannabis space, what is it that your company really focuses on, and what makes you unique?
So MTec Acquisition Corp is a special purpose acquisition company, or a SPAC, which is a shell company that you IPO and raise funds through, and then have a target of taking a private company public. So in this case, our goal was to take an ancillary US-based business public through this SPAC structure.
Very nice. And how many, I believe that just came through actually, you just recently had one for MJ Freeway. When you start working with them, what are the different products that you're going to be getting into through this company? Do you work at actually selling the products, or are you more, you help incubate the company, like you said, bring them public, and then maybe divest some of your shares as they start going public, or what's the plan there?
So the merger with MJ Freeway will create a new company called Akerna, which will be the holdco, and the primary asset will be MJ Freeway. And the intent from there is to continue to grow the cannabis technology platform. So not only with organic growth with MJ Freeway and other businesses that are within that portfolio, but also acquire other businesses that are complementary or synergistic with what MJ platform currently offers. So when we think about other elements of the technology supply chain, what are beneficial to different businesses, we intend to continue to grow that platform and become the largest technology solutions provider for the global cannabis industry.
Yeah, it's a unique aspect actually. A lot of the people we have on our show, you always get your growers, you get different products. You don't see as much with technology. Are you already revenue positive at the moment, or is that coming down the road in the near future?
MJ Freeway did about $10.5 million in revenue last year and is on a strong growth trajectory. But we anticipate through organic growth and M&A with this transaction, which MTec will allow for an additional $57.5 million approximately in cash on MJ Freeway and the new holdco Akerna's balance sheet. And so with that, we intend to grow pretty aggressively, not only with the current products that we offer, but also offering new products through M&A activity.
Very nice. And for those who are looking into your actual your stock and your market cap and what you're looking for, what is your ticker that they can find you on and find more information about your company?
Sure. So we're NASDAQ traded. Our ticker is MTEC. You can find us now. We've been trading since January 30th, 2018. When the merger is complete, the new ticker will change to Akerna as the holdco. But investors don't have to worry about that, as the transition will happen quite smoothly. But if you're looking to buy now, it's MTEC.
Beautiful. And I believe you're strictly ancillary, correct? You're not looking at actual production or going down that road maybe now or when on a federal level it starts becoming a little bit, well, I shouldn't say a little bit, it becomes legal on a federal level. Is that an area that you might look into, or do you want to strictly stick with the ancillary products?
Yes, we're focused entirely on the ancillary market with the intent that we want to be a service provider to businesses in the cannabis industry as well as governments in order to provide technology solutions, supply chain management, compliance and regulatory software and framework, and to be able to transparently report that information to all of these different parties.
No, that's very nice to hear. And when it comes to 2019, I know we've just started it, just almost finished January now, but what are your goals for your company throughout this year? What can investors be excited about in 2019? So as soon as the merger is complete, we intend to execute against our M&A strategy. We have already been looking at ways to continue to build out the MJ Freeway platform. But in addition to that, businesses that are already complementary to the MJ Freeway platform, when you think of different point of sale platforms or seed to sale platforms that operate in perhaps different geographies or address a different consumer base, those are strong targets, as well as thinking about other opportunities. So things like data and how do you continue to provide more information to clients and governments around the world. So we'll be executing against that very quickly in the first half of 2019. Very nice, yeah. And like I said earlier, it's one of those unique situations where all of these LPs and all these different players, instead of being competitors to you, are actually opportunities. You want to try to onboard as many people as you can onto the infrastructure that you've set in place and that you're focusing on from the sounds of it.
Absolutely. The larger players, but even the small players, because they are being absorbed and acquired by these larger players. At the end of the day, a lot of these businesses, all of these businesses will require really strong technology solutions to be able to keep them efficient, compliant, have all the information they need to make better business decisions for themselves and for their customers. So we intend to partner with all of these large producers and exporters, and also be able to give better information to them so they can have more business intelligence to run their businesses.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate very much for you coming on the show, giving us a showcase of who you are. I know recently I've seen a few news releases going out, but it was a newer company in my eyes, so I was excited to learn a little bit more about you as well. For those who want to continue digging in, your website or where they can find your investor presentation to know a little bit more about you.
Sure. So you can check out mjfreeway.com. The Akerna website will be released once the merger closes, but you're able to find all of our filing, our public presentation, and our S1 filing through the SEC website.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time very much coming on the show, and I wish you all the best and throughout the year. I'd love to have you on later on in the year to see how your progress has been going on and the different developments that you were able to do over that time.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'd love to chat again once we close the deal.
Absolutely. Take care now.
Thank you. Take care.
And thank you very much for that, Tahira. Thank you very much.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, I actually only know, personally, I only follow one other company like that. It's like Cushco. But Cushco is doing the products and like actual containers and everything, whereas they are much more on the information side of things. But just in general, you don't find many of those companies that are
niche,
strictly ancillary, meaning they don't actually touch the plant.
I'm just checking out their Twitter.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Very interesting. I'll look into
about 7,500 followers.
Oh, wow. So they're active on that too. That's important to see.
I wonder if they tweeted if they're on our show.
I don't know. We should find out.
They did.
But Greg,
Yes.
for all those who know Greg by now, you should. Where's the camera? There it is. News releases. What stood out today? Every morning at 5 in the morning, every single morning, Eastern time, you were up putting those into our website, getting them aggregated for everybody. What stood out today?
You know what? It was actually a slow news day compared to, I guess, Monday was a holiday for the States, but even then, we had more news releases on Monday than we did today. But couple is Crop. They ended up doing a private placement, so at 30 cents with full warrants at 50. So a lot of people are pretty excited about that. They're a huge hemp
Player, yeah.
Yep. So here it says the lab will provide 10 million plant starts for the company's 2,115 acres.
Wow, that's actually huge. That's massive.
That's huge, right? So, I mean, I think it's a pretty good deal. I do own Crop, and I almost want to sell them to
buy
get
more.
into this.
Hence why when private placements come out, usually you see a drop in share prices. Everyone's selling their shares if they're in the money, getting into the private placement, getting warrants as well, and then keep riding with that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Anything else standing out to you?
Relivium, they came out with a news release. I do apologize for my blurred
Photo you got there.
that's my bad. I'll get a new one.
Yeah, that was for the acquisition of Sleipnir, if I'm saying that correctly. We had Aurelio on the show. We had Aurelio as the CEO. We had him on, oh, I've got it up here, yeah. We had Aurelio on the show last month or before. I actually went to go see, their IR had let us know about a movie that was coming out about one of the companies that they have partnership with Canada Kids.
Oh yeah.
And it was called Weed the People. I actually really recommend it. It's not about investing whatsoever actually. Weed the People, there were certain showings on it. It's about pediatric care using cannabis for children with cancer. There's 5 families they were showcasing about all these kids who were finding remissions, they're finding better life, they were getting off all these crazy drugs that they were on beforehand, instead using cannabis instead of that, or with other things. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I like that, and that's why I look for, you know, there's certain things we always need to look for. You either look for a company that is the biggest producer, the cheapest producer, or you look for someone who's in oils, are they global? You know, there's certain segments you're looking for. One of them I find very, very interesting is the nutraceutical and the nutraceutical, there's another word for it, but it's completely eluding me right now, but basically it's helping people get away from certain drugs and using cannabis instead. where it's insanely less addictive.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of these
it's like
properties
the
for
opioid
it.
crisis, right?
Exactly. Look at the endocannabinoid system that Aurelia and I were talking about when he came on, talking about the fact that our bodies are built to take the cannabinoids from cannabis, and it helps our cells be healthier. It helps kill cancer cells. It reminds them to kill themselves. So, interesting development. I believe this one was out in the UK, and it's about bringing on more products as they're growing their brand of health products.
Yeah, really trying to expand. So that's good to
very,
see.
very interesting. We'll see how they continue to grow over the course of over the year.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very interested in that story.
Yeah. Into the pediatric care, or in general with Relivium?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my youngest brother actually suffered from Hirschsprung's when he was younger, and he was in and out of the hospital all the time. Now, I can't say that cannabis wouldn't necessarily help him with this, but just seeing that and seeing the effect it had on my mom. And I can only imagine these parents when they've got a child who's so young, pediatric care, and they're looking for answers, and these doctors are saying, take this pill, take this pill, take that, and it completely destroys their mind. They're zombies. This is one of those
Zombie
feel-good.
effect, that's a real thing.
Absolutely.
I've seen that in
for
people I know.
epilepsy. There's a drug out there, and that's why Epidiolex for GW Pharma, why that one was a huge deal, because those drugs are able to help these kids with epilepsy, where they're having these amazing, or I should say amazing, incredibly terrible seizures, and yet these drugs would put them in a zombie mode for 24 hours. They're completely fried, whereas cannabis, it takes effect within a minute, and there's virtually no side effects.
Yeah, that's unreal.
It's amazing.
When you see that, you see those videos online, because you can find them.
Yep.
It just makes you think, like, how could something that grows from the earth been stripped from us, in a legal way anyways, for so long? It's just weird, man.
Yeah,
It makes you think, and when you start digging into that,
it really is a shame, because there are so many people out there that, there's investors right now, there's investors watching this, and they're trying to think of what companies to get into. The whole world, Canopy Health always sticks out to me as well, where they've got over Canopy Health. It's a division of Canopy Growth. Last I checked, they had over 30 patents pending.
Jesus.
Specifically on sleep deprivation. All these different. I mentioned this a couple times on the show already, because it's so important.
I was telling a family member last night, we were having a call, and we were getting into investing in cannabis, and I was like, it's going to be really cool when you go to like a Shoppers Drug Mart and get a gel capsule that can sort of maybe replace an Advil or help with sleeping, right? Like, to me, that's really exciting, and it makes you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we look at Shoppers, they're already selling cannabis. I was talking to James a couple weeks ago about are they going to be a big player in the cannabis space? I don't know so much about flower. You're not really going to go there and start like smelling things and taste. I don't think it's going to be. But when it comes to oils, pills, whatever it be, nasal sprays, I'm starting to see as well.
Yeah.
Because it gets in your system even faster.
Well,
that is going to be massive.
We had Nanosphere on.
Nanosphere. That's where they said it. Yeah.
Huge. 80 seconds onset time. Like,
That's amazing. It's amazing when most edibles take so much longer.
Yeah, and I enjoy talking about that part of this, when I meet people and they don't know anything about it, or they're sort of old school, cannabis, start talking about this stuff, and they're like,
I wish we could pull up that video you did in the mall, was it? That lady?
Yeah, I remember that with Eden,
Yeah. Oh, well, we have that footage.
She was very against you.
Yeah, she did not.
And
she did not like it whatsoever.
it's interesting.
If you had more time, you could have educated her.
She was she had cancer, and she served. God, it's eluding me. She's
Tongue Twister Wednesday.
Yes, it is. So
remission?
she experienced, she battled cancer, and she recovered and everything, but it's like, wow, to have she was really negative about cannabis, man. It's like, whoa.
Hey, there's a lot there, and we've always said, we talk a lot about cannabis because that's what a lot of people are engaged with, and there's a lot of opportunity still there, but there's a lot of different areas that you need to look into for these cannabis companies, because you're trying to figure out how to judge one from the other, and that's the exact topic that Chris, who we're going to be pulling on in a second here, we were talking about, because we wanted to ask the questions of, what do you look for as a fund manager? What are the things that you want to dive into? What aren't as important as others? There was a lot of interesting answers there.
Can you do me a favor?
Yes.
When we're airing the segment, can you guys not talk?
I'll try really hard to, but that's almost impossible.
I really want to hear it.
I came out of my mother's womb, I wasn't even crying, I was just talking.
Oh boy. so weird.
I want to go to one of your family functions.
Oh, we have to put up our hands.
You wouldn't be able to talk, bro. Why would you ever want to go there?
We cut each other off all the time. But speaking of cutting us off, we're going to cut us off. We're going to go to that interview now because we were going to see what Chris Arthur had to say with the Ask the Fund Manager segment that we had in our Facebook group. Tune in for that for next week. We're going to get those questions going again as we're pointing to everyone and everyone else is pointing at me. Let's go with that video now. And we're joined here today with a guest you haven't seen before, but you will be seeing a little bit more of in the very near future. Chris Arthur. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Doing very well. So for our members and for those watching, Chris, you've been in our community for well over a year now, actually.
Yeah. So got in pretty early. Really love this space. Love what you guys were doing, and I'm happy to take a bigger role here.
Absolutely, and you know, we were looking at doing some pieces together because obviously your background in being a fund manager and you have a lot of schooling in that area. We really want to extract a lot of that, so be prepared for that. But you were in BC before. You've just recently moved to Toronto, hence how you're able to come on the show hopefully a lot more often.
Yeah. So I was previously working for a firm out there called Wealth Bar. Working as a portfolio manager out there. Just got the hire to move over to Toronto, so now I'm the head portfolio manager of a team at Wealthsimple.
Very nice.
So now I have the flexibility coming on the show whenever I can.
Absolutely, and also an avid investor yourself. Obviously, with work, that's obviously a prerequisite. But for yourself, avid investor, where's your money currently? Are you still all cannabis? Are you in mining? Are you switching around?
So I'm switching around a tiny bit. A large percentage is in cannabis. Got in quite early, thankfully. But some of my more solid plays still in cannabis, bit in mining, and then the rest are allocated to different private placements throughout the industry.
Awesome. Well, what we were doing, and we did this 2 weeks ago, but we wanted to make sure everything was good at work, that you can come on, because we got to always make sure everything goes smoothly. Yeah. Got the green light.
Compliance issues here and there. Yeah, gotta touch base on those ones.
Yeah, it's probably important. But we've got, we have a segment. It's called Ask a Fund Manager, and we had it just like we do with our stocks for Jonny Mac, who I know you know quite well from our group as well. We let everyone put their own questions in there and then vote on them after, and here are the top few that we're going to go over for all those who were voting on that. What are some of the most common red flags you have seen people miss when looking at companies? I'm just going to read them out really quickly here.
Yeah, no worries.
With years of experience reading through quarterly financial results, what are the first things you look for, calculate, and or ignore? What is CDAR? And if we have time, why is price to earnings ratio important?
Yeah, no, so great questions, and yeah, I think they're all very important for our investors to really know. So yeah, biggest red flags is when you're evaluating a company, I find a lot of people go in with some kind of prejudgment, or they're looking for certain information, so they read something online, a comment, press release, what have you, and they sort of have a mentality looking for that information. But when you're looking at results, you really need to go in plain slate. You can't have any prejudgments and really just go into it like you're reading it for the first time. You have no idea what this company is about, because I find you'll skim over certain details that will probably get missed, and sometimes it's very important.
So you're almost saying you got to really watch out for being biased going into it. I'm guilty. I've done it numerous times.
I've done it. I do numerous times. Sometimes I just have to stop myself and like, why did I just skip over this section? This is very important. Like, really be a very thorough job when you're evaluating these companies. The next big one, peer groups. I see this too often where they're evaluating a company and they don't really focus on the proper peer group. So this company not only has to be similar industry, has to be similar size, similar life cycle. So if they're in their, let's say, launch, expansion, maturity, or decline, it has to be pretty similar demographics, similar size. So finding that peer group is very tough. Especially in some of these newer industries, especially in the cannabis space as well. Two cannabis companies, very, very different from each other. So finding a comparable in the same life cycle can be challenging, but it's something you really have to go through in detail there.
Yeah, and when speaking about peer groups, obviously not looking into Facebook groups or follow the money groups. You're talking, you're speaking on, if I've got Harvest One, how am I comparing it to Veritas, which is another, which one is completely focused on different medical compound and then trying to help with cancer and all that, where the other one is obviously speaking on cannabis, on CBD pills and whatnot have you. So it is hard to say, okay, this one's at this market cap, this one's at this market cap, but can I actually compare them?
Yeah, so products sold. So yeah, comparing those isn't the best there. And then thirdly, I would say using the right ratios. So with cannabis companies, it's hard to use a price to earnings or price to book ratio because they don't have that predictable revenue. So you got to get creative with these companies. You got to look at what licenses do they have, what's their projected growth, what are they producing, what is their future production, price per gram, price per milliliter, price per press releases, slide deck. So you have to get more creative with these type of plays. You can't just use your standard ratios and maybe just look at those to make your, let's say, oversold or overbought kind of decision there. So you got to really take a global approach with some of these newer fields and newer companies.
Yeah, and I think that's an amazing point, because over the last 3 or 4 years or so, as I've been talking to more and more people while I was investing in cannabis, the amount of financial people, so people who have a background in some sort of accounting or finance or just they took their CSE course, whatever it is, it was amazing how many of them discredited cannabis simply because they're like, oh, the price to earnings ratio is this, oh, the quick ratio is this, oh, it didn't pass the acid test. But you're trying to test it on numbers that clearly don't exist right now, when so many other people are looking at, yes, it's a speculation, very, very highly speculative, especially a couple of years ago. But for all those people who said, no, I'm not going to touch it, it doesn't pass anything, it's all a scam, it's a bubble, they missed out on multiples and multiples of gains because they could not see, look, you're trying to find a winner here. You're trying to find a company. You're trying to get a Microsoft when it was still in the pennies or the low few dollars. It's amazing how many people completely wrote them off, and I think still are, because those ratios aren't there.
No, and yeah, you look at the industry right now, they're still being wrote off completely. I remember a few years back when we were discussing Canopy, when it was still in its infancy, and I was speaking to a few colleagues who were all portfolio managers. Not one of them was touching it, and they're all just saying, oh, it's just a fad, it'll pass, and look where it is today. So yeah, really focusing on maybe well more than the ratios, really just looking at the whole picture and future, let's say, production, future results is really what you want to encompass with these early stage companies, whatever industry it may be. Albeit that there's still a high risk involved, but yeah, really looking at that future potential is really what you want to focus there on.
Well, it's interesting because I know you've probably seen the Facebook Live a few times of Carl bringing up his fund manager story. Someone completely making fun of Canopy when it used to be Tweed and saying, I wouldn't buy that, that thing's going to zero. Well, did it? No.
Yeah, a bit more than zero right now.
So, but you know what? Some people choose to take the prudent route instead. But it's interesting, on that exact note, before we go to the next question, it's interesting that we just pretty much discredited all of those ratios for cannabis, but it's funny because we're actually re-entering or entering for the first time into a time where these ratios are actually getting important. And we're exiting, this is a personal opinion of mine, we're exiting the whole, what are you going to be growing, speculation, all that kind of stuff. It's still a little bit in there, but we're really entering that phase now of, okay, show me the numbers. I've been following you for 2 or 3 years. You told me this, you told me that. Now you have to start seeing, okay, who are the players who are actually producing? Who are the players who are actually going global? And you want to actually start seeing these ratios start making a little bit more sense. So it's a weird period right now.
No, it's almost like put your money where your mouth is kind of period. They said they were going to do all these things. Well, are they actually doing these things? 2019, 2020, I think are going to be huge years, especially for those big companies on really just putting their bottom line is, we set to do this. Are we actually doing this on time? I expect delays with a lot of them, just in the nature of the industry. But yeah, 2020 financial results will start to be very indicative of future results for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of analysts have been very, very kind with their price targets and with their revenue targets. I was looking at something the other day where we were showing the market cap of companies and their projected revenue for 2019. I'm looking at a few of these companies and thinking to myself, I know you've been having issues with your build, for whether it be the law or whether it be, who cares? But you seem like you told us that you'd be done phase 4 right now, and you're still in phase 2, so you're not going to have that revenue in 2019. I'm just hoping that's not a case for a lot of people saying, oh, this person missed earnings, this person missed earnings. But at least that way we get back to normal life. Real companies.
I think we'll see a few missed earnings for sure with a lot of these companies. But again, 2020, 2021, that's when I hope to see them get on track in that regard. It's not a slow process, but I think we'll get there, yeah.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next question from our fan voting, our fan favorites.
Fan favorites, yeah.
So with years of experience reading through quarterly financial results, what are the first things you look for and calculate? And then also, what are the first things you ignore?
Yeah, great question there. First thing right off the bat is I would advocate that we do not want to look at the press releases instead of quarterly statements. The press release has, let's say, a lot of your key figures, but your press releases and your slide decks are often geared towards a more positive framework. Yeah. So we really want to look at the 10Qs for the US and the quarterly statements here in Canada. Biggest thing we have to keep in mind, especially with the 10Qs, is these aren't audited. So you'd think this is an official financial document. Well, this isn't audited. So the annual reports will be, but not those quarterly statements. So one thing to keep in mind when you're viewing them. Yeah. Biggest things I would say is you want to be looking at the earnings per share right off the bat, their net income, and their revenue. We want to, not just positive, but we want to see a nice trend growing from quarter to quarter to quarter. And if there's a lapse in there, that requires a deeper dive. So right off the bat, that's what I want to look for right at the beginning. I would say the second biggest thing is you want to compare these ratios with other companies in that peer group. So establishing the peer group is not only important for the analysis, it's really throughout. You got to find different companies that you want to be comparing it to choose your winners there. So I find that is a critical step that's often lost upon. You go through results, everything looks good, but how is this company comparing to another company in the same industry?
Yeah, and I like that because you do have to compare. I mean, if you think about it, we do it with everything for every day. If you're looking at a car, if you're looking at a van compared to a sports car, you're going to be judging different things. You know, you're not looking at the van and thinking it doesn't have 500 horsepower. You know, it's not the same. But if you're looking at a van compared to a van, now you can start saying, okay, this van has this horsepower. This van has 7 seats, but this van has 8 seats. I like that. You know, and just really hammering down the importance of finding comparables, which unfortunately now when we're talking about the cannabis space, we're saying is a little bit difficult.
It is a little bit difficult.
We're getting more now, we're getting more, and a lot of them are saying, hey, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, perfect. Put them into a peer group. Have you done that, by the way, by any chance? Like when it comes to cannabis, do you have a certain list, or you just take it on a case-by-case basis and compare? No,
so with cannabis especially, I do have certain lists, whether it's, I usually go by either market cap or specialization, so whether they're going into oils, whether they have a certain market cap, so Canopy and Aurora, obviously, two large companies that I like to compare them quite a bit. In terms of, let's say, international plays, they might be slightly different there, but you sort of got to get a bit more creative with these peer groups. But yeah, I do have a few lists in mind for my various plays that I've used in the cannabis space.
And it'll help too, because you know it takes a while to set up these certain lists. But I'm a huge Excel fan because I love having everything there that I can manipulate whatever time. But you can sort through it. You can go through. So if you have everything, if you've done your headings properly, you can just click, sort, boom, filter. All cannabis, all oil, all flower, and you can just sort through that way. So for everyone watching, get your list together. Help you do due diligence, not just today, but in the future.
And also, I would advocate Google Sheets over Excel, but that's just my preference.
I use all Google Sheets, but I already said Excel. I had to go with it. I had to go with it because with our email for our work, everything is all there, so everyone can see it and adjust it. But the other part of that question, are there certain things that you ignore right off the bat? You go either ignore completely or go back to because other things are more important?
So I wouldn't say there are things I would ignore specifically. I would again focus on, let's say, top line revenue, bottom line earnings, net income. We want to focus on that growth from year to year. I would then focus maybe towards account receivables inventories. We want to make sure they're growing at similar rates. If one is off by, let's say, a margin of maybe 10% or more, that is often indicating a problem. So that's a quick way that you can sort of dive in. Is my account receivable and my inventories growing at the same rate? Because that is a significant problem for some companies if they're off there. And then I would circle back to the rest of the report. I would want to pay specific attention to the lawsuit section. Often, like, they will not say the dollar value. But you really want to make sure that this lawsuit isn't very detrimental to the company. I've seen many, let's say, fund managers go into a company and really just ignoring the lawsuit, and then it bit them, and all their investors were hit hard there. So after seeing that, I pay particular attention to that section and really evaluate, will this be a large hit or just a little dent for that company?
Yeah, and actually that's another good point that you're bringing up, and something that we can't really tell right now, but I think as of next quarter and the quarter after, we can really start getting some good ratios on, is the inventory turnover ratio.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure technically I said that wrong, but the same thought process where, especially for a cannabis company, you want to see them turning over that ratio, that inventory. Same thing with merchandise. Obviously, you want to see merchandise in grocery stores. You want to see their inventory ratios turning over much faster than, say, a car dealership. Even though I know that's important, it's not going to be the same rate. I can imagine we're going to want to see some really, really high ratios there where they're really turning it over.
No, so yeah, I like that you brought up the product, so produce aspect of that, because that is what they are comparing cannabis to. They will have to have similar turnover ratios to produce, because you can't keep it on the shelf life for long, especially for dry cannabis. Your oils, different story there, but yeah, their turnover ratios will have to be very high, especially with shipping, depending on where the cannabis is going as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're watching now, start looking for that. Look for the turnover ratio. So you won't find the ratio in there, but you can calculate it.
No, exactly. Yeah, you can calculate there. Yeah.
Really quickly, turnover ratio. What is the calculation? I'm putting you on the spot.
Turnover ratio, so we would look at the inventories and how fast they are selling them. So we want to make sure they are very, very quick, especially the cannabis space, and you want to look at it relative as well. So again, peer groups, huge. For anything we're doing here, we really want to look at the peer groups, because if, let's say, one company, the shelf life is 6 months faster than the other, or just 6 months, a bit long, but let's say 2 weeks faster, and that's a continual basis, well, that is going to affect their bottom line very largely. If we're throwing out 60 kilograms of cannabis every month or whatever you have, that is money lost. So you want to be looking for those companies that have the quickest turnover in terms of time.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the ratios that we're going to have. It's going to be the easiest to compare one company to or up there, because at the end of the day, everyone can say like, oh, I've got high quality cannabis or low quality cannabis. I'm doing oils, I'm doing flowers. If you're looking at mining, looking at anything else, but specifically when it comes to cannabis, it makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, this is what I grew, this is what I'm selling. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it for the most part.
And efficiency, it really brings down the efficiency of the company. If they're growing 100 kilograms of cannabis, but they're only selling 80, well, where did that 20 kilograms go? They're not going to advertise that they just threw this out. So you will have to look into their financial statements to find these results there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then moving on, because of this other question, it might sound silly to some of our investors, but be very honest, a lot of people do not utilize this enough, and newer investors don't really know what it is. CDAR. What is CDAR? Why is it important?
Great question. So CDAR is the System for Electronic Document Analysis and Retrieval. So what it does is all, let's say, public Canadian companies and investment funds in Canada will file using CDAR. It's much more efficient, and the process is much better than what we had previously. It's basically just a database where you can find all relevant, really, documents regarding those companies. So what I basically use CDAR for is every morning I'll look through the prospectuses. I want to see what new issues are coming to market. And thankfully, it's not that long of a list. So as you make a daily habit of just looking through CDAR, looking at those prospectuses, you'll be able to spot out the companies you're looking for. You'll see some bigger names there occasionally, but you have to sort of know what you're looking for, know the companies in the space, have a target list of, let's say, what you're looking to buy or what you're potentially looking to buy. And then you can look out for those companies on the daily list. Second way I like to use it is when I'm doing a deep dive. I want to make a buy in this company. I can find all the relevant documents there, and then I'll include those documents with, let's say, press releases, slide decks for additional supporting information. But I like to use the annual quarterly results that I can find directly there.
Yeah, and that's an area I've really been trying to train myself to learn more as well, because quite honestly, we're all growing, we're all learning. I've always been someone where I love to look at the fundamentals. And unfortunately, that's fundamentally wrong if that's all
Just
you're looking
fundamentals,
for.
yeah.
But I love seeing a company that's doing something different. I like strategy. I like knowing the management and speaking to them, thinking, "Oh, that person's onto something. I think they're going to find something." Or I can see that they've already found something that this guy and this person and whatever it be hasn't found yet. But it's so important to also put TA work in here. That's why we have Jonny Mack come on the show and start teaching people that. But yourself, when you're looking at the financials, that's where you're going to be able to find all these things is through CDAR. I remember a couple companies actually, I was able to go in and whether it's, we're checking the Form 9 or checking, I'm trying to think of what it is for TSX and Venture. I think it's the quarterly reports.
Statements,
where you can see, if you look in the past, who was a part of the shell when that first started happening?
Oh yeah.
Where's the cheap shares? Where's the dirty money?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of times I've looked into this. Something that comes to mind is the Bridgemark fiasco that everyone's looking at. And we always stress to everyone watching that's still something that's ongoing. You have to understand it's going through a process. And in Canada, you're innocent until proven guilty. But there still is enough there where everyone's scratching their heads, like, okay, what's going on? So people are looking for certain individuals, and if they're a part of a company, they think twice about getting into that company. And you find that stuff on CDAR.
Another thing, the press releases are great for companies that you're following, companies that you're invested in, potentially investing. You'll find all those press releases right there, hot off the press. So check that on a daily for the companies you're following. But also, the prospectus on a daily basis. Just give a quick read through. It might seem a bit daunting when you go in the system at first, but make it a daily habit and you'll get better and better at it. It's quite simple when you get used to it, but you just got to make a little bit of habit of going in there, playing around a tiny bit.
Absolutely. Well, my good sir, we've let some time fly there.
That
was good though. This is not going to be the last time you see Chris. We're going to be doing some stuff with you moving forward, especially being in Toronto because, being a part of our community, you have the exact same core values that we're trying to help people learn, but also we're learning off one another because you can't, if there's 5 people looking into a company, it's a lot easier than just one person looking into a company. So we're going to be doing this a lot more often. We're going to be doing the segment called Ask a Fund Manager. Look for it at Follow the Money Investor Group. It's our private Facebook group, because that's the ones where Facebook allows us to have a poll where you can put your own answers in. So this isn't done by us, this is done by our community members. You vote on it, and then afterwards we see if Chris can break it down.
See if I can break it down, challenge me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate very much. Thanks for coming on, my good man.
Problem,
Look forward to having you again very soon.
Sounds good.
And back in the studio. Thank you for that, Chris. I really appreciate that. I think that's really...
That was awesome.
That's really cool, where that's someone who was one of our members a long time ago. Like almost from the very beginning, where everyone was a Facebook group. And he said, I'd like to be involved more and all that. And him coming to Toronto, now he's able to. He's just down the road, he's able to come over. He loves doing that, so I appreciate very much if you're watching right now or rewatching later. But those are the questions a lot of people, especially a new investor, don't really understand. And now here's someone who can say it in layman's terms, this is what you should be looking for, or this is what I do at least. I think we're going to have a lot of segments come up with them that will be very, very interesting.
Chris, that was fantastic, and I look forward to having you on, hopefully on a weekly basis, and maybe you can take over my seat one day.
Oh, it's getting primed. But no, I thank you very much for that. And going to another area, and I just realized too that in the interview I said I'm not always into fundamentals, but I do fundamentals. I'm like, wait a second, I was hearing my earpiece. I'm like, that was some bad wording, but that's fundamentals. We're about to go to technical analysis because that's another world. And that's going to be Jonny Mack, someone else who has been helping us a lot over the last few weeks coming on the show. I do not know, I'm waiting to hear in the side of my ear and this magical thing that goes in there, if we're going to have him on now. Oh, he's on and we're about to have him. Jonny, how you doing today?
You just lied to everyone.
I did just lie to everyone. Everyone who was watching this, you were lied to, but not by me, by the people in my ear.
Definitely brought your A game today, Brandon.
Yeah, no, it's, well, in the meantime, we'll be talking, they're figuring out the audio issues there. We're going to be breaking down 3 different stocks, and by we, I mean Jonny. We've got Aurora, as we said earlier. We've got, I always keep forgetting. TGIF and Wayland. Wayland missed for a couple of weeks, and now it's back in the popular vote.
Have been being killed.
Well, it's been all over the place, right? It's been all over the place. We see his screen now. Now we need volume so we can hear his voice. Bear with us a moment here, everyone. Bear with us as we look at the major indexes. How are they doing, by the way, today?
Jonny, can you hear us? That is a beautiful picture.
Yeah, good times. So just as we're getting that, all set up here, the Dow Jones not looking too bad. I think nothing's terrible right now. Dow is green, S&P 500 is slightly red, NASDAQ is slightly red, but they all did the exact same thing. They're up pretty high, and they've really came down since that point. Came up a little bit from the lows, but still green,
Up really high, and they came down.
Yeah, like every other stock I've
That's a
ever
good technical analysis, right? They were up pretty high, and then they came down.
Yeah, the stock went up, and the stock went down. There's a lot of people trading it, and I lost money.
And it's gone.
Fuck, we need John ASAP.
Yeah, if we can get my, one second, I want to get my NDI up, because that's, for all of our, I hope we have some people who may or may not watch South Park. It's a very, very intelligent satire. But this one here, if we get my NDI up, I saw this, someone showed this, I died. Started day trading with $500, and it's gone. And that's how many people first start investing, and then they quit. But if you're in a good community and you keep moving forward, you don't have to, because you keep learning and growing.
Yeah, keep scrolling Twitter.
Keep scrolling Twitter.
Buy some time here for Johnny Mac.
Another edition. It's going back on here.
Find something funny.
Well, why don't we look at what everything's doing today? Because we haven't looked at that at all. What the different sectors are on. Look at all those colors going.
At least they're not all one color.
Afria, they're coming off that news that's going, the GGP, the official news, I should say, down 1.38%. CanTrust down 3%. Wayland's got a little bit going for it right now. It's gone up a nice 3.5%, which is nice. No double-digit movers either way, so it's really been, the volume is very, very low. Look at Aurora, 7 million. It's usually up by the 20 million area. So volume very, very low today. Maybe it's cooling off after a really, really volatile first few weeks.
Oh, I'd say so.
Dixie Brands, haven't seen them in good green for a while. So no, it's just nice being able to look at these different areas, seeing what's going on. You got to keep in the know. You got to keep moving.
Got to keep in the know and got to keep moving.
Yeah, is that a new slogan?
I want to make a shirt for you for the next week after a line that you made the week before. Or cool.
Cool. That right there is one of the greatest comedies.
Just said it live. Jesus.
Of all time. Andy Samberg and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Johnny Mac is on.
Johnny Mac is on. We've rebooted the system.
Save us, Johnny. Please save us.
Johnny, can you hear our voices?
I can hear him.
Can you hear me meow?
Yay! Johnny in the building.
I was struggling with my TA, Johnny. I was struggling. We were saying stocks go up and stocks go down. Carl wasn't too happy with that.
John, if you want to take out Wayland and do GGB, it's okay. I'm not going to be mad.
No, we go with the people's choice.
Yeah, the people's choice, right? So I guess we'll start off. We've lost a little bit of time there, but I think Aurora was the #1 pick. The last time we were talking about Aurora, I think we were sitting down around here, and it was struggling to get back above and sort of recapture its historical support area in the $7 to $7.25 range. So we had lost the support a couple times. Keep in mind that these dips happen when the markets in the U.S. got really ugly. I think we hit almost like a short-term capitulation bottom anyway in the U.S. in late December. So that's when we were seeing these support breaks. So, but in my view, when you have a long-term support level like this, if you're looking at the stock from a longer-term perspective as opposed to just day trading it, which is kind of how I'm trying to make the analysis here, is you want to see that the stock is able to get back above and retain that old support, which is what happened. And not only did it do that, it did it on some really nice volume spikes. So the volume basically on these up days was between 2 and 3 times what it was down here, which is good. So when the buyers make themselves known, when there's a bunch of demand that comes in for the stock, that's what you want to see. So we had a really nice push out of here, so we were actually able to break this downtrend. Basically, we broke this resistance up here. Did get this was quite a run off the bottom. So you expect some profit taking. Basically, you expect the sellers to show up. Whether it's people taking profits or whether short sellers starting to re-enter positions. I do feel personally, as my personal view, that some of the buying pressure we saw in the MJ space as a whole, Canopy, Aurora, etc., was from short squeezes, was from some short positions being squeezed out. And that's why we got such a very quick and violent spike. So we got a bit of a blow off top because we had this big, long, high upper wick here, which is showing a bunch of supply coming on the market, and there's not enough buyers to take it. You can actually see that corresponds to the highest volume day as well. So, you could call that at least a short-term volume climax. Had an inside candle here that broke bearish. So we had sort of an indecisive day inside candle, and we broke in bearish. So now we're basically trying to hold this 821 level. It's actually broken below this today. It got ever so slightly below, I think 817. So it got just slightly below. We haven't seen any follow through, but it is important to note that we had inside candle activity 3 days in a row until we basically broke this. So we have set a new low, but ever so slightly, no follow through yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on that area. This support area is basically corresponding to the area that we saw resistance on this bounce between the two lows. So not surprising. If for whatever reason the stock isn't able to hold this area, then I would have my eyes looking down here around 775, 780. You have the rising 20-day moving average and the 50-day moving average, which is starting to flatten out a bit. After being falling for quite some time, they're both sitting around there. So you definitely expect some support to come in around there if the stock were to break through. And if for whatever reason it didn't want to stop there and it wants to keep going, then we'd be looking again at this key support test in the low $7 range. I've mentioned, you'll hear me mention this a lot when looking at who's generally in control of the stock, the bulls or the bears. If the sellers are in control of the stock, I don't generally expect the RSI to get much above 60%, and it did. You can actually see it got just ever so slightly overbought here at the peak. And when you see something like that basically tells you, you compare it to these reaction lows, even though these were big moves. We never even got above 50% basically on the RSI. So we weren't even into, quote unquote, positive momentum territory. So with this move that we've had here, we actually got into overbought territory. So that's not something you see when the sellers are in total control of a stock. So definitely in the shorter term, that imbalance of power between sellers and buyers has ended, and the buyers have flexed their muscles a bit here. So the question becomes, where is it going to find its bottom in this consolidation range, and what is the rebound going to look like? So obviously the less it falls, if it falls to here, it's got quite a ways to go to challenge that previous high. If it falls to here, it's got a long way to go. So if it can form a bottom where it is now and push up, it has a better chance of continuing sort of the momentum. And if for whatever reason the push off the bottom, doesn't basically set a new high, then we're looking at equilibrium pattern, and how is that going to break? Basically buyers and sellers, the balance of supply and demand coming a little bit closer together, and you're just watching to see how that supply and demand is going to break. So I think very good sign that the stock is back above its this long-term support. The volume came in, which is good. Aurora took advantage of the run, and you could look at that a couple different ways, but Aurora took advantage of the run. They are doing a financing, so that's going to factor in to the price. It's going to, in my view, until the financing is closed, it typically keeps a leash on the stock. So that's something to keep in mind as well. PPO, our trend following indicator, basically confirmed somewhere around here that we had broken this downtrend. So we went back into positive momentum territory, which is where we sit today. So that's my view on Aurora. If for whatever reason we're able to eclipse this recent high, then I'd be looking at the 1075 to 1050 level, because we have had some some significant resistances show up in the past at those levels. So we've had a couple rejections here. We had some rejections here as well. So that would be, if we are able to break this most recent high, that's where I would be looking. Whalen Group. So this is perpetually in here. Obviously, lots of people still in the stock. I've gone on record several times saying the stock had a lot of work to do from a chart perspective anyway to get some traction. And I think last time we covered it, we were down here, and it still wasn't clear whether we were going to be able to hold this low that we set in mid-December down in the low 80s. The problem has been it just hasn't been able to keep, set a higher low. It's basically a downtrend here, and every time it sets a low, it can't hold it. Well, it finally was able to do that shortly thereafter, and we got a push off. We got back above the area in the past that had acted as support. So this is a historic support area. Maybe I'll quickly zoom out to the longer term view just to remind everyone where that's coming from. So that's the rebound we got in early trading. We had some support come in here as well. We fell below it, but we've recaptured it. So that's a positive at least. And that's what I had said last time was one of the key things that the stock needed to get back above this major support level. And you have it act as a base of as a floor basically on the stock again. So we're back above that, which is good. We got just like Aurora did, we got quite a sell-off here. So this black candle, in case you're wondering, so the black candle basically means we closed higher than the previous day, but you can see that the actual open was up here and the sellers pushed back that whole time. So we had a whole bunch of supply come on the market here. The peak ended up happening to correspond to a few peaks we had back here in the $60s, mid-low $60s. So these two rejections we got off this resistance level is basically what set this resistance level as well, and we had the falling 200-day moving average there. So we had basically a convergence of some chart resistance and some moving average resistance. So very high potential of reversal, and that's what we got. So even though on my chart this candle shows up as gray, meaning this is like buying volume, I see this as definitely a victory for the sellers because your highest volume day here is the sellers are pushing back, and then you had another day shortly thereafter with another spike in volume, and that the sellers really dominated. So that's to be expected when you have, this was quite a move. If you go, I think from intraday basis, from, bottom to top, we were almost a 90% move, and from a closing basis to where we closed here, that's over a 50% move. So this was quite a gain for the stock in a short period of time. So is it natural to expect consolidation? Absolutely. Very normal. And then you're just looking to see, okay, where are the buyers going to start pushing back again? The volume has been falling off aside from this. So I'll talk about that in a second. So we had this indecisive day here where we had an inside candle. We didn't get any follow through. The sellers were strong the next day, dominated, and we lost that, low. So I had marked this low here. We had a double bottom here around $1.22. We lost that low yesterday, and then looks like the $1.19 level is our our nearest term. The level that we're watching basically is can it hold $1.19? At some point we want it to obviously put in a low, and it's going to be obviously higher than here, which is good. I don't see it falling apart right back down to where we went. So where it rebounds again, the farther it falls, the harder it is going to be to continue the trend. I would definitely look for support in this green area, $1.05 to $1.15. That's the historical support zone. We have the rising 20-day moving average. It's sitting at $1.17. So there's a bunch of supports to work with here, which is good. So this, finally some positive news for Whalen. The RSI didn't quite get overbought like Aurora did, but we got into the high 60s. So again, that imbalance of between the sellers and the buyers that we were seeing with all these little attempts to rally that were stuffed, never even got above 50%. This tells you that imbalance in favor of the sellers has ended. and the buyers are definitely pushing back. So the red flags for me, or maybe not, red flags isn't the right word, but the caution signs for me is the big volume days happen to be when the sellers are really dominant. And I don't find that, we didn't get the real huge run up in volume like we saw in Aurora. Like if you compare some of the volume on this push up and you compare it to how Aurora, it was like double or triple. So I don't find the buying volume here as strong as, just comparatively speaking to Aurora. And then when the days when the volume is highest, we are seeing the sellers dominant. So that is something to watch. I think it's very important that this stock does hold this traditional, quote unquote traditional support area between $1.15 and $1.05. So that's what I'm watching for. Make sure it holds that. Hopefully get a nice strong bounce off of that. If we get a weak bounce off of that, that would be concerning to me, because that tells me we might be looking at a support. Another support test that could potentially break and send us below, and you don't want to see that happen. So hopefully for all the Wayland shareholders out there, the bulls can pick back up the momentum, the volume. We need to see the volume come back in though, and until that happens, I won't be too convinced. But it's a start. It's a start on the stock. This is a good sign here. The sellers have really lost their stranglehold, at least in the near term and short term. TGIF, I think the last time we had this one on here, so we're looking at the weekly chart, just from a longer term standpoint. Again, we had this fairly long downtrend which lasted most of a year, and my comment was basically I saw the stock as more or less in a sideways pattern. Like this is more or less just sideways to me. I would say perhaps with a slightly bearish bias to it, you could argue, because we have almost like a weekly equilibrium pattern. So the low of this downtrend, a rebound high, bit of a higher low, lower high set here, and then we lost that low. This was again late December when the stock market really got hit hard. So I'm not going to hold it too much against the stock. And this particular combination of candles here, where you have this long red candle, then this almost like a doji hammer, and then a nice big strong bullish white candle. This is a good indicator that momentum has turned around in the favor of the buyers, which is good. So even though we did get this intra-week, and just keep in mind this is in a weekly chart, we did get this intra-week move below this traditional support area, an old resistance area that had pivoted to support. So we got support in this area several times. So even though we got the intra-week move below, it was able to close within the support area and then bounce out, which is good. So my comment, I think before, was I expect, I wouldn't be surprised to see continued sideways movement, consolidation, with the resistance area being mid to high 40s and the support area being 37 to 33, so about the mid 30s. You can see. Let's go to the daily chart, zoom in a little bit. So here's us breaking that support level. We weren't below long though. Again, that was when the market really took a beating in late December, and then we were quickly back above. The volume we didn't get a big volume spike though on this recovery, so that's something to note. So very short term, the support level I'd be watching in this is this 40.5 level. We've had a couple bounces off here, and then we can see the trading is actually very tight. The last 3 days have all been inside candles. The trading is occurring within a 40. Like your high here is 43 and your low is 40.5. So that's a very tight trading range. Volume is low, so we're basically looking to see which way is this going to break. If it breaks to the upside past 43, then we're gonna challenge this resistance zone again. If it breaks to the downside, then I'd be looking at this 20-day moving average sitting at about 40 cents. We're just above that already anyway, and then probably more confidently the high 30s is where I'd expect it to find a rebound area. As a reminder to everyone, I think these zones, as I've defined them, sort of make sense. If you look at the share structure of the company, there is a bunch of cheap paper still out there sitting between 25 cents and 35 cents warrants. There's 25-cent convertible debt that's still outstanding. So anytime you get down to about the 30 level, if you have 30-cent warrants, 35-cent warrants, even 25-cent convertible debt, there's not as much incentive for people to be selling that paper. But when you get up into this area, you're approaching 50 cents. So if you're sitting on 30-cent warrants, you're over 50% gain. The 25-cent paper would be out of basically a double. So that's where the selling is coming in. And the other thing to keep in mind too, the last raise they did convertible debt, I believe the conversion price was 45 cents. And as we know, the tendency is for people to sell that convertible debt and sit, take their capital off the table and sit risk-free on the warrants. So this is where these buying zones are coming in. So that's why I think the stock, it's just going to take some time, I think, to sort of wash through some of this cheap paper. So you have the warrant paper, and a lot of that paper is expiring this year, starting in April and going until about October. And the other thing is you have all that convertible debt up here. So that's why I think, range bound between these two. If you're looking for things to say, okay, when is it going to break out though? When is it ready to make a move? I would be watching for the stock to sort of form a higher and higher base close to this resistance level. And if it starts, forming a higher and higher base where it's sort of getting into this resistance zone and the sellers are not pushing it down as far, that's probably a sign that the supply of shares that's been keeping things sort of choked at this point is starting to dry up. So that would be sort of your clue that things are about to move. One other thing I wanted to note on this company, the last two runs we've had, they both rejected off the same RSI level, so in the low 60s. So that is an RSI level I'd be watching. It's about 63 to see if any further gains, if we get another rebound, if we get a rejection off that level. So the reason to watch that level is basically if the price is able to push up and the RSI moves above, that's a really bullish sign.
Here, don't tell me it's the...
And got a little background noise there, guys. And then if it keeps, yeah, James West is in the building.
Yeah.
So, and if we get if we keep getting rejections off there, then the stock just needs to consolidate a bit more, probably in a general sideways direction. So that's what I'm looking for on TGIF, but not a bad looking chart. Again, sideways, not so bad. It just, you need to clean up the paper on the stock. Very normal for these junior companies when you have some cheap paper out there. It basically takes time to mop that up and move those shares into strong hands and set the company up for a push.
Okay.
We have some extra time. I don't know what you guys want to...
Well, that was efficient.
Well,
that was going through everything. That was
let's hit up some,
surgeon with a knife.
Let's hit up some GGB.
Or scalp, probably. You probably want a scalpel if you're a surgeon.
I did mark up the charts on CXXI and Namaste because they were actually the top 5, so I could cover those if you want.
CXXI, I love it, and then GGB as well because Carl's looking at me like, Brandon. The camera's not on him right now.
Well, GGB also hasn't been trading that long, so it doesn't have the best history for Jonny Mac to even do TA. However, I'm kind of selfish right now.
Jonny Mac can do TA on anything. A one-day traded stock, he'll tell you.
Well, I mean, the more trading, TA is pretty tough on a stock that's only traded one day. Obviously, the more history you have, the better. But so this is CXXI. It's one I've traded in the past. I don't currently own it. So I've marked this level here roughly between $1 and 90 cents, even into the high 80s. We've got a few pushes off of this level, and if you look at the share structure of the company, from what I've seen, a lot of the paper in the company seems to be like, a lot of the investors in the company seem to be in around the dollar mark. So naturally speaking, I would expect that when you get down to this dollar area, you're not going to have as much incentive for people to sell. So, you know, I'm not surprised that we've got these pushes out of this area, and then all of a sudden we had this big support break. And I think you can chalk this up to the capital raise that they're trying to do, and I believe the company, that raise is still open. I think they're looking for 10, they've raised about 5, and that is a convertible debt offering. So when they originally priced this offering, I think the conversion rate was something around $1.50, which is really aggressive, and that's when the stock, I want to say the stock was trading just above $1. So I was like, wow, that's, you know, if they can fill this financing convertible debt at $1.50, good on them to be able to do that. But I shared with a few people that I talked to that I suspected someone was going to be hitting the price pretty hard to push for better terms. I suspect that's probably what we saw here. Is you know, some interested parties with some big pockets decided we're going to muscle the stock around and we're going to use it to force some better terms. So we had, you know, quite a support break, dropped all the way down into the low 60s from $1, you know, which is quite a move. And then they priced the offering at 80 cents, I believe. So basically 80 cents now. If you look at where we are, any moves that go straight too far from 80 cents, I think you're going to start to see some selling pressure because that financing is still open. Anyone that owns free trading stock that's wanting to get in on these convertible debt at 80 cents, you know, there'll be some hedging activities going on. You know, in my opinion, you would see some funds selling their open market shares, hedging their position, and then covering, you know, moving that capital into the convertible debt at 80 cents. So that's why, you know, I would, until that financing is closed, until they basically say we've closed the financing, we're not looking for too much more money, or, you know, we're not looking for any more money. I think that's going to keep things tied down. So, you know, we did have a nice rebound off the bottom here. It's come up a lot. It's gotten back above the dollar range, which is good. And then we quickly lost that, you know, unfortunately. Now, again, because it was such a move, you know, selling pressure is sort of anticipated because, you know, anyone that's just trading the stock, they're buying it down here. This is a very big gain for them. They're going to be dumping their shares up here, and that supply is coming right back on the market. So it looks like we have a short-term bottom here at 85 cents. We had a double bottom off that level. And then the good thing is, even if that doesn't hold, you know, we do have the 20-day moving average on its way up. It's at 83. We had the rejection on the way up off 83, and now that area looks to be what I would expect to be support. So I would expect, you know, 85, 83, this whole area here should be support. So right now, possibly we have our bottom end, but we're not really getting a super, I can update it. I don't know what the stock is doing right now. Yeah, it's still not really a convincing move today by the buyers to push off if we're going to truly say that this is our near-term support level. But, you know, the key thing is here to put in a higher low. So if we get a nice push off here, then we can be convinced that, you know, maybe we're going to try and continue this momentum upwards. But again, that caveat that I threw out there, I'd be watching for the selling pressure from anyone that's getting in the financing.
Yeah,
much like the others.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
No, I like hearing that. I mean, this is something, funny enough, I always say, as soon as you taught me about Bollinger Band squeeze, I'm looking for them everywhere. And that's one, actually. I went in at 85 cents because I saw that happening, and it's protracting because they had like a $42 million market cap, and they just did an acquisition for around 23 million USD 12-month trailing revenue, which is huge. And they have 2 more of those deals to finalize, supposedly by them, in the month of January. So from a fundamentalist side, just look out for that as well.
Yeah, so those are obviously good catalysts. So the thing you need to get out of the way is this convertible debt financing, and once you get that out of the way, then, you know, reevaluate and see how the picture looks. What I wanted to just point out again, like many other stocks that were struggling to get, you know, they couldn't break that 60 mark on the RSI. Like the other ones, CXXI, on this recent push, it was able to get there, and it almost got into overbought territory. So again, clearly long-term trend here has been downwards. It's been basically a slow decline. If I can quickly go to the weekly chart, and that's the wrong one. I think it was really simple, just down. Weekly chart has not been able to hold its lows. So lower low, lower low, lower low. So, in order to turn this around, we're going to have to put in a higher low here somewhere and then push. But this has just been the general downtrend of the stock, just from a more longer term standpoint. So if we're going to turn this around, this is a great start, but we need to put in, a base and sort of see that momentum continue. So these are the areas that I'd be looking for support. And if for whatever reason that fails, then looking back down here at 70 cents, we had a bunch of tests here on that one. Now, and then sorry, go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, when you do get a moment, we've got about 14 different people on our FTMIG Facebook page and on Midas Letters YouTube channel screaming if we have time for Namaste afterwards. Just letting you know that the people are loving this.
Okay, so here it is. I did mark it up. So again, one of the first things I do, this is my personal style, is I'm looking for what are some of the key support and resistance levels. So I focused in on this area, basically the mid 130s down to around 120, and we had a bunch of wicks in here on the way down, and this is the area that springboarded that big run up to what was it, almost $4 a share. So this tells me the buyers were coming in here. There was still some selling pressure because we were moving lower. But the trading range was getting quite tight, and the buyers were definitely flexing their muscle here. And then all of a sudden, just a complete change in the demand supply imbalance. Major demand for shares. We got a huge push off this on major volume. So that's why I would expect this area. That's where we got our push from before. So I'd expect the buyers to be strong there as well. So on the way down, we did get some rebounds out, but you can see that we lost it. And again, this loss came, to keep it in perspective, this loss did come on that really ugly push in the overall markets in late December. So the stock has since recovered this, what I would call a longer term support level. Keep in mind, this is a weekly chart you're looking at. And this combination of candlesticks here, you could almost call this like it's probably not textbook, but it's basically a morning doji star. So you have a long red candle, a doji marking indecision, and then a big white candle with showing that the momentum has shifted in favor of the buyers. So the area that we've rejected off from this pushback up is another area that we've seen some rejections in the past. And when the stock had got above it, it was acting as a support area. So this area, I've marked it as basically 170 area to 165. So somewhere in here, that's where we've had some previous pushes off. When it became support, it was acting as resistance before. So for whatever reason, historically, it seems to be significant, and we did get our rejection off that area. And right now, the 50-week and the 20-week moving averages are sitting in that zone as well. So right now, if you look at this weekly chart, we have some weekly inside candles. So this candle is taking place within the complete bounds of the early January candle, and then this week's candle is even tighter. So you can obviously see that the trading range is tightening right up. And one thing to keep in mind on this rebound, if we're looking on the weekly chart, even though this is a big move off the bottom, we didn't even get above 50% on the RSI. This is the weekly RSI, keep in mind, but still, this is, thinking of things more long term. So if we zoom in here on the daily chart, on the RSI, Namaste hasn't been above 60 for a long time. We're looking way back in, say, mid-late September. So it's been obviously a long downtrend that it's been in. The stock has given back a huge amount of its gains that it made. It blew through its August low. And okay, so finally, after all that time with this push that we've seen up, we actually got into overbought territory. So once again, I view that as a sign that the seller, that big that real big imbalance between sellers and buyers, with sellers being in major control, has ended. Because if the sellers were still in control, for the most part, you wouldn't see a move this high. So that's a good sign. The PPO, MACD, whatever you want to use, has moved into positive territory again. Haven't seen it there since the beginning of October, so that's good. So that basically is confirming, this is your trend following indicator, so you're using it to confirm trends. So this zero line crossover on the PPO is confirming that basically this downtrend is sort of ended. If you want to draw trend lines, you could see that this is a very clear downtrend, and then this move has definitely broken that downtrend, so that's good. So here's this here's the pullback from the high. So we had a nice move off the bottom. Percentage wise, we would expect, this was a 122% move. So would you expect some selling? Absolutely. People that were buying this dip, if you're a trader, are you going to be selling it? Absolutely. So you're going to have some selling pressure come online here. So then you're just looking to see, can the stock continue its momentum, put in a higher low, which it appears to have done here. But then this rebound has been kind of weak. So the two areas I'd be watching, basically this low 130, 131, 132 level. We've had a couple tries there. It's held. And then on the resistance side, 143. So this is a very narrow trading range. When you compare what the stock was doing here to how we're in now, we're in basically an equilibrium pattern, because the rebound here has been really small. So we're going to have to see how this breaks. Is it going to break to the upside? If it does, I would definitely expect a retest of this resistance that that ended up capping the run. And if it breaks below, then I would expect a retest of the low that we saw on the January 15th at about 120. The nice thing is, too, you do have this rising 20-day moving average coming up as well, so that's acting in favor. If for whatever reason isn't able to hold any of these lows, then I'd be looking down around the dollar mark here as marked on the chart. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah.
Isn't it interesting as well? We looked at a few of them there, and you can also add Evenco in there. And who was the other one that did move just like that, where they all had like an 80% burst off the bottom, all almost the exact same days. Who was it? Eve was one. There's another one that we follow as well. It was like 110% move. That was almost 100% move. CXXI had a really nice move. Weed had a really nice move 2 days later after even the other company. Why can't I think of their name? But it's a pattern, eh? It's a pattern. A lot of these hit some really low lows and just catapulted off of them.
Yeah. Again, my view is, you had a combination of the overall markets being sort of oversold, I would say, certainly on a short-term basis. Whether that bottom holds remains to be seen, but the overall markets got really ugly really fast. And we had this rebound off the bottom. Money was moving into equities in general from bonds, from safe haven assets, and so money, when that risk on appetite starts to come back, these higher beta stocks like like the marijuana sector, they're going to attract capital. And I suspect there was some short positions on a lot of these marijuana stocks that got basically obliterated, and led to some of the basically fuel to the fire of the buying interest as people were buying the dip, and the momentum sort of changes in the short term. For Carl, just to throw this out before we run out of time, Brandon, how much time do we have left?
We got a few minutes left. Oza was the other one, by the way. Oza.
Yeah, minute and a half.
So green growth. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of data to work with, but here it is. It's on TradingView. So it has been in a nice uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. Okay, so one thing we have to watch here is we have to watch to see if we're not maybe getting a lower high set here. So we've come off the bottom. So the low is somewhere around 540, and I think short term need to be watching to see if this will make sure this gets some follow through. For whatever reason, the scale on my chart, it will not. I can't zoom in on the time frame any tighter than this to make these candles a little more defined. But yeah, I would be watching this area. So we had a high here at 608 and then another high. Yeah, so 2 days in a row. So we have basically a double top here at 608, 609. So I'd be, be watching to see if this
breaks that.
By the end of the day, make sure if the bulls aren't able to push through that level and then we get a push down, we've basically set a lower high. And then if we were to lose the bottom here at 540, then that will have changed the daily trend around, and we'd be looking at some consolidation certainly in the short term. The X factor here being Green Growth Brands has an open now official open unsolicited aka hostile bid for Aphria. So it throws sort of the X factor, into the whole, where's the stock price going to go?
John, we've got to cut you off, and I'd love to keep going about GGV, but what do you think of our hats here, dude? You like them?
I can't see too much detail, but
you get a hat. You get a hat.
I don't know. You can't mess that hair.
All right, John. Well, the producers are telling us.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah.
We got to wrap it up.
Put the hat on.
I'm sending Johnny
Let people
Mac
have a
hat.
good laugh.
And thanks a lot for the TA. Brandon's got his on.
Yeah.
All right, dude.
Yeah.
We're
as
outta
always,
here, man.
as always, guys, my hat's off to you.
All right, man. Later.
That's the second time he's left us off with a nice little
Good.
zinger
He's
there.
witty. He's a witty guy.
Well, appreciate it very much, man. And for all of you watching as well, we appreciate your time. You can check us out on a couple people are asking where to find out all these videos on Facebook. You can go follow the Money Investor Group for our private group. That's where we do all of our polls. FTMIG is where we have our Facebook page. That's one of our hats. FTMIG.com. Thank you for being on the Midas Network. We will see you
next week.
Next week.
Horrible.